So I'm going to put arrows on these things so you get kind of a little bit better idea of what's going on as we talk with this whole thing. Okay? There's the arrows. Remember, this is the x-axis, and that's the y-axis right there. So we're just going to fill out the domain and range for now. We're going to eventually, by the end of the week, have half of this probably done. This is y equals x. Y equals x. I'm going to start with the domain. So that means I'm going to start on the left. The first thing I hit is an arrow on the left. Arrows on the left are negative infinity. So my domain is going to start at negative infinity. And as I would cruise my way over on the graph, I'm always going all the way over until I hit either an open dot or a vertical asymptote or an arrow. The next thing I get is an arrow on the right. Arrows on the right are positive. That's going all the way to the right. Yes, it's going up, and yes, that's going down, but we'll get to that in a minute. Arrows on the left, negative infinity. Arrows on the right, positive infinity. The range. I'm now going to start on the bottom. The first thing I run into is an arrow on the bottom. Arrows on the bottom. That y value is negative infinity. This interval notation is like a number line. It gets bigger as you go from left to right. I'm going to go up on that graph until I get to something that's weird. Boom. An arrow on the top. Arrow on the top is positive infinity. And there's your domain and range for y equals x. Here's y equals x squared. You can put some arrows up there for yourself. And there's the x and the y-axis. The origin is right there. Now it's going to get a little weird, but here we go. As I go from left to right, what's the first thing I hit? Arrow on the left. Arrows on the left are negative infinity. That arrow's going up, so everybody starts to think that's positive. That's the y value. The x value is still negative. The x value I hit over here is negative. If I keep going, that goes to negative infinity. Then if I keep drawing this thing on the curve until I get all the way to the right, which is an arrow, and an arrow on the right is positive infinity. Arrows on the right, positive infinity. Arrows on the left, negative infinity. Remember, the key thing to help yourself out, who's always going to be written on the right side? Positive infinity. If you wanted to put positive infinity in there, that should get you to say, hey, that's not right because I can never put positive infinity there, so it must be something wrong. Now the range, I'm going to start on the bottom. The first thing I run into is that dot right there, which is at a y value of 0 and actually includes it, so it's going to be a bracket. Then I'm going to go up, up, up until I run into something. Arrows on the top. So that's positive infinity. Y cubed coming up. Put arrows there. Got some arrows right there. Start with the domain. Move myself all the way to the right. The first thing I hit is a arrow on the left. So that's negative infinity. And as I go in through the domain, I run into nothing. So that's positive infinity because the first thing I hit is an arrow on the right. Domain, like I said before, looking for open dots, maybe a break in the action, or some other weird kind of thing, okay, you might run into. But in this case, we don't have anything that's nice, smooth. If I can draw my pencil and not the whole graph and not pick it up, then there's not going to be any issues with the domain. Okay. The range, start at the bottom. I get an arrow on the bottom. So that's negative infinity. I keep going all the way up, and I hit an arrow on the top. There's positive infinity. There's the square root. Remember, there's the x-axis, there's the y-axis, so this is really the origin. Oh, put an arrow here, sorry, I almost forgot to do that. An arrow right there. So for the domain, start over here. First thing I hit, 0. That's at an x value of 0, solid dot, so it's a bracket. Keep on going this way, all the way to the right, and I hit an arrow on the right, so that's positive infinity. The range, start at the bottom. First thing I hit is that solid dot. The y value is
0.
so it includes it. And then I keep going all the way up to the top until I get to an arrow. Arrow's on the top. Positive. There's 4. Time for 2 more. The 1 over x and the absolute value. 1 over x is the one that gets a little gimpy. Okay. I like to put arrow there, arrow there, arrow there, arrow there. It's hard for you to do these. There are vertical dashed lines right there. And the one thing you notice about this, could you take your pencil and draw that without picking it up? Nope. So there's going to be an issue in this domain. So let's begin like we normally would. What's the first thing I hit?
Negative infinity.
An arrow on the left, so negative infinity. Now, as I keep going, remember I'm worried about the x's. As I draw this, I'm worried about the x's. But I can't get any farther to the right because right here at an x value of 0, there's a wall. Alright? So at 0, I got to stop. There's a wall. There's a vertical dashed line there, so that means I can't go to 0. So there's one chunk that I could do. Now I got to figure out the other chunk. Well, that other chunk starts just on the other side of 0, doesn't it? When you're doing the domains and the range, remember it's a nice smooth number line, always getting bigger from left to right or from bottom to top. So I'm going to start at 0, and that's going to go all the way until I get to an arrow on the right, which is positive infinity. So there's the domain, 2 chunks. The range, going to be kind of similar. First thing I run into is an arrow on the bottom. So that's negative infinity. That will go all the way up until I get to that horizontal dash line, which is at a y value of
0.
and it's a dash line, so I got to put parentheses around it. And like the domain, excuse me, you're just going to hop over the top, and I'm going to pick it up at 0 again, and then I'll be able to get all the way to the top of positive infinity. A lot of work on the 1 over x. Let me get even worse. Some of these get absolute value. in general, it's gonna look very similar to the one right above it, the parabola. Okay. But, we'll work our way through. First thing I'm gonna run into, an arrow on the left. So that's negative infinity. As I go all the way to the right, I don't run into anything at all until I get to an arrow on the right. That's positive infinity. The bottom. Run into a solid dot at 0. And either way, I can go all the way up on that side or all the way up on that side. Either way, I end up into an arrow straight up there on the top. So there's positive. There we go. That's the green sheet. Hopefully we're getting a little bit more comfortable with what's going on. Not necessarily.